Hi, I'm Andrew Spieler,
And I'm Rennie.
and you're watching or listening to Behind the Sign, real stories from real estate. Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of season 2. Oh, that's my lucky number, 22, so there you go. And we have a returning guest today. Mr. Alan Rice is with us again. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
And
This our first returning, second returning.
second, because Bill came at the end of season 1, I think,
Bill
right?
beat you on this one.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Story of my life.
That's right. So the goal today is we're going to talk about, around the theme of goal setting, coming up with some really concrete things that agents can do in this month of January, right? Getting quarter one set to take advantage of quarter 2 in the spring. And what are maybe some of those things that you would suggest and things that you did to get yourself ready that you found were effective and helpful and could really provide some, I think, clarity for everybody coming out of the fog of the holidays and starting the new year with, very high aspirations and expectations for themselves. But then, okay, what are the systems that need to be put in place to actually make those actionable and achievable,
Yep. And that's actually to piggyback on that. January is always, we're all really excited to jump in. And we have really high expectations of what we're going to accomplish for the year.
Yeah.
And then, yet, I think so many times we put it so high and then we don't accomplish what we wanted in the quarter one, and then we get frustrated and just quit. Mm. And don't we say by February 15th, we quit our habits? So right. I would love to know if there's systems and models around how we could do it so that we do progress forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about goals and what those need to look like, or what I would recommend they look like, and put some shape around them. So, this time of year, January, we all, goals, like you say, I'm gonna lose weight, and
I'm gonna make $1 million.
Gonna make $1 million
while losing the weight.
Yeah, right. So when we talk about goals, really, let's just talk about what's the purpose of goals. Why do we even have them? We give them up by the 8th or the 15th of January anyway. Mm-hmm. So what purpose do they serve? Well, and you may have some insight or thoughts about why that is, but I think, for the most part, what we do is we want to have some direction in terms of where our business is going. What we have typically done is front-end load goals. That is to say, we say we're here by the end of this year, by the end of 2026, we want to be there. And that's certainly, admirable. Mm-hmm. What I found is over the course of time that if we really start with our future self, and this becomes even more challenging for people, but if we talk about our future self and then reverse engineer what we need to do at various stages in order to end up where we want to end up, so that we end up in an intentional spot, not one we use the term by default, that we just ended up there. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we've got to be clear about where we want to end up. I mean, we've used the analogies before. It's like your business plan is your GPS. Your goals are your GPS. We just don't say, I'm going to Chicago today and I'm going to get in the car and I'm just going to follow signs that say Chicago and I'm going to get there.
I think we used to do that before GPS.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And then we had a map, and then we got divorced, and then we had a GPS. Yeah.
It's true, though. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I like to talk about with people is goals really need to have two key components. First of all, where does it fit in the future self? Where do the next 12 months fit in the future self? And did we reverse engineer it? Because that's the only way, not the only way, that's one of the ways that we can give ourselves some flex when we don't reach where we thought we were going to be at the end of quarter one by quarter one.
Yeah.
Or end of quarter two by quarter two. Or end of year three by the end of year. We've given ourselves some flexibility to absorb things that come our way, market conditions, although I never blame my performance
No.
on the market.
Right.
But, it's a factor, or other things. So to me, goals have to have two things. Number one, they have to be attached to a why. Goals that don't have a why attached to them are the ones that we give up on January 8th or 15th.
Yeah.
So when we say, I want to lose 20 pounds, why? What is it about 20 pounds that, you want, why you want to lose them? And now why becomes a very difficult question. And it's really one that's hard to answer. And that's why I try to, stick with what, how, when, where, who questions. Because why tends to feel like an interrogation right out of the gate.
Yeah. It's very personal.
And in our brains, why lives in a different spot in our brains than what's, who, how, where, so forth.
Can you explain that a bit more? That's fascinating. I don't know if I've heard it that way.
So, the two parts of the brain are, the outer cortex and the innermost part of the brain.
Yep.
And so in the outer cortex, that's where the logic lives, and logic and language. And so when we say, what's your name? I know that.
Yeah, right. Right.
What do you love about Wednesdays? Oh, this, that, and so forth. And when we ask those kind of questions, because logic and language lives there, I can think about it logically, and then I can express it. I can capture it in language. Why doesn't live there? Why lives in the innermost part of the brain, and that's where emotion lives. Now, emotion is a very big motivator.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or contributor, right? But that's where emotion lives, but language doesn't live there.
Is that the limbic?
That's the limbic part.
Yeah, because it doesn't speak.
This.
It does not speak.
Yep.
Good job.
The science here.
Yep.
You guys are smart.
Cynic.
So what happens is, that's why when we ask why questions, that's why it almost debilitates the receiver, because they can't wrap language around it. So I try to, when I want the other party, when I want to get info or get exchange going with the other party, I'm asking all the what, the what question, the logic questions, not the why. However, if I want to stop the other party because they're overcoming the conversation, they're going down rabbit holes and so forth, I'm going to why them to death.
It's interesting.
Because that's going to
slow it down.
I don't know. And I tell the story about, when you remember when your parents left you alone for the first weekend when you were 15, and they were going to go away for a weekend, and said, now remember, no whatever.
No parties.
No parties, no drinking, and so forth. And then they come home a day early, and they walk into a house full of, bodies and bottles. The first question they have is, Mary Hope, why did you? And you say,
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, it's not that you don't know. It's you don't know how to put it.
When did this happen?
You don't know how to put it in words. Right.
What was done?
Yeah. And we can always say things like, we can change any why into a what, or the other things, by saying, what were you thinking about?
Yeah. What made you do this?
Yeah. What was it that you thought was good about this particular idea?
Decision.
Decision.
That's great.
So why becomes very, very important in goal setting, because when we say a number, I want to make $250,000 next year. Okay. Why? And when we say the why, now I'm having a hard time putting it into words, as opposed to what kind of an impact would that have on you or your family or people close to you? What does it have an impact, and what impact would it be?
Mm.
And we also know that people, because we're all people, you know, will race away from pain more quickly than towards improvement. Hey, you could do better. I mean, you're making 200 now. You could, if you did these two things, you could make 250. I'm pretty content.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or we can, and on that same note, sometimes we said, okay, I made 100,000, then I should make 125, 150, just because we know we should be improving. But that very fact that we run away from pain easier than run towards, that's great. You want to improve. But if there's not something that we're kind of running away from,
Right.
Mhm.
it's going to be a lot harder to accomplish it.
Right.
That's really interesting.
So tying it to a why, and that why can be anything as long as it's meaningful for the individual. So would 250 have an impact on your life? Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
How so?
Mhm.
In what way? Tell me what that, tell me what
What
that
will that
might
do?
look like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so now visualization starts to be part of the process.
Mhm.
Well, I can see myself on this 21-foot, whaler. I'm with my fam. Okay. I mean, it doesn't,
Right.
there's no judgment
It
about
doesn't have to be
what
this
it is.
highfalutin.
Right.
No.
Mhm.
But it must be connected to a why in order for it to have sustainability. Otherwise, it just won't.
Yeah.
And, people, just to go back to the weight thing for a minute, people lose weight for things like weddings and birthdays and anniversaries and so forth. They don't lose weight for health.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
You know?
true.
Yeah.
And I'm not discounting those reasons. So anyway, a why has to be in place, and we need to help people because it's a thing that we don't really spend a lot of time with. In school, we don't have classes on, okay, today we're going to determine what your purpose is in life.
Mhm.
I mean, we work on multiplication tables and other things, but not, purpose. And so we all need to practice that, to make sure that we have purpose in mind. And oftentimes it's legacy based. Whether it's, I want to earn $250,000 so that I can buy a vacation home because our kids are entering the time of life where we could go there for 2 weeks. We could go up on a weekend. And create these experiences and memories that of legacy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know.
And that became a very personal legacy, not just legacy. I think so many times, you know, we want to feed the poor children and bring peace to the world, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But and those are great, but when there's not something weighted, a why that's personal,
Mhm.
Right.
and when you say my children are getting to an age where this and this, now you're starting to visualize what that future self, like you brought up,
Correct.
Yeah.
could
Correct.
look like.
I have a quick personal story that kind of relates to the power of the how, what, versus the why question. And it ties right back into filmmaking and acting. I was required to do a whole scene where I was supposed to be tied to a chair and being tortured. I mean, it was from a script.
Yeah.
And I was the one being beaten to death, right? And I performed the scene, did it. And then the professor, who's a director who's been directing for many years, said, so you really didn't kind of show me anything, right? Like I didn't feel anything.
Yep.
And I said, oh, well, I was afraid of dying, and he was like, no, you weren't. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, so you're dead. You die. Who cares? Right? You're
Yeah.
dead. Why would you be afraid? Because you're going to die.
Yeah.
And I said, well, because if I die, then people I know aren't going to, see me anymore. And he goes, so tell me more about that. Right? What's it going to be like when your parents find out that you're dead? Right. And he makes you visualize and go through very concrete things of like, what's the impact going to be of your loss to this world? And I just started bawling, right? Because it's very specific and it gets you to visualize and then start feeling emotions. And then that's how you hit performance, right? And it's something that I think, the more you can tap into those sort of like very definitive not even avatars of random clients, but like, what's the impact going to have on those that are closest to you? That will motivate you more so than I think anything else. Yeah.
Well, and if we go back to our core values of God, family, then business, if all of our goals are, I want to make 100,000, I want to make 200,000, I want to make 300, I want to make more than anyone else in this company, whatever. If that's our only goal, it's gonna fall short.
Yeah.
Always.
It's going to run out of gas.
Because
Yeah.
we are doing business for the sake of having a bigger life, not for business itself.
Right.
Because you're going to hit a lot of walls if you're doing this for business sake, right? From not really anybody makes money for money's sake,
Right.
right? And I don't know how you can even,
I'm sure there are people that
well,
do.
well,
or something else.
To expand on Andrew's point, and that is, visualization is so important in goal setting, so important. I mean, we do vision boards here in the office,
Yeah.
and and when I hear stories about, I did this, and 90% of them, or whatever came to
Right.
be, the importance of visualization. And so when we say, yeah, I want to make 250, it's not so I open up my Citizens app and see 250.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
So now-
that doesn't
Equate to anything.
do anything.
No.
So that's why visualization becomes very, very important, which is why when we say, to what end on the why, can you visualize it? Can you actually now start to feel
Right.
what that's going to be like? Whether it's a home or taking care of your elderly parents, or whatever that thing is. And that now when I can start to visualize it, I'm well over 50% of the way there. I played basketball in college, and we were part of this thing about visualization, and we had somebody came in. They did these studies everywhere. Half the group took a week off from foul shooting. The other half shot 100, or no, more than that. I think it was like 500 shots a day for a week.
Wow.
And the folks that didn't shoot foul shots watched films of people shooting foul shots. And at one point, one of the films is just watching the ball. You've seen it in the commercials. The ball just swishes through the net. And so that's part of the visualization. And then when they put the group back together after the week, then we had a contest. And so I know you're going to know what group won.
Amazing. Yeah.
But the visualization group
Yeah.
had a higher percentage even after the practice of,
Wow.
and because you start to
Mm-hmm.
Well,
because the body follows the mind. It's not the
Exactly.
mind following the body. The repetition of the physical is important, right?
Yeah.
But if the mindset isn't there, then it's not going to be enacted.
Well,
Yeah.
as you're saying this, I'm realizing, my goodness, our world is so fast, right? We move at such a speed. And as I'm hearing you talk, both of you, I'm like, this all requires a lot of time. And time, quiet time. I know you've talked about your thinking chair. That's really, really hard for us. We are not in the habit of slowing down, daily, or even let alone a monthly or weekly or yearly. And yet, because we're wanting to be productive, right? Even like,
Well, we're succumbing to the expectations of the
Yes.
technology around us. And that's like
Correct.
an even bigger issue, for
we've talked about that. a
yeah,
lot.
exactly. Because technology never rests. It's 24/7. It's always advancing. It's always looking for your attention. And if you give it up willingly, it will take it and just keep taking.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to safeguard time to sort of do the slow productivity, of like sitting and thinking and being with yourself and looking out the window and maybe listening to music, or I drive all the time with the no sound. I just drive,
Yeah.
just quietly. Just that's my
hard for
time,
people. That's
I know.
really hard for people
know.
to do right now. Because
Yeah.
I myself, even when I'm even thinking and stuff, I usually have some sort of background. And I'm like, we are so accustomed to noise, activity. And I think we're really, my feeling, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, we're staying in that outer level of our thinking and not able to get in there
Yeah.
because we're coming up with solutions and we're writing numbers and figuring out.
And that feels like progress, right? We
You
get
do.
addicted to the idea that like we're actually making progress as opposed to, because again, you're avoiding the deeper thoughts. I mean, if you really want to get meta with it, right? If you sit down with yourself and say, what's the meaning of life, right? Like, when am I going to die? Like, what's the moment of my death, right? And actually think about that. That's an uncomfortable thought to have. But like, these are all things that like we're mortal, and I think a lot of people right now would much prefer being distracted by all the bells and
Yes.
whistles that we have in society than actually facing our own sort of like mortality, if you will. And so as a result, you just stay in the busy world because that's less painful to think about.
It's
you
a
know?
comfort level,
It
and
is,
we
yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
we're moving forward. That's
Yeah.
that's what's interesting is
Yeah.
that we convince ourselves that we're doing something, and we might be just in the same cycle. Like
Mhm.
I know this is one of the biggest struggles for agents is they're like, but I'm doing the work. I'm doing it. I'm here every day. I'm making the calls, and nothing's happening. Well, you haven't had enough time to look. First of all, you have not probably articulated why you're doing it,
Right.
because that changes the quality of what you're doing changes. I
Fine.
I always kind of joke with people and say, okay, I will pay you $100,000. I think I've used it on here, because it just makes sense. I said, if I paid you $100,000 a year, and all your job is to make me 4 appointments a month. That's all you have to do. You have to find 4 people, 4 buyers or sellers to meet with me. Would you take that job? They're like, yeah. I'll take a job that I only have to find 4 appointments
For you.
for me. You're going to make about $200,000 making that on your own.
Yeah.
That is like that almost messes with our head when we hear about it, but we're willing to do that. Why? Because it's so focused, and it's for somebody else too.
Well, I was just going to say, to me, that really strikes at the, around accountability. We always give up on ourselves first, always.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And we're more inclined to do things because someone else is invested in it, or it's going to impact someone else's investment.
Yes.
We're more inclined to do those things because of not wanting to disappoint, or to not let somebody else down. But we always give up on ourselves first. I mean,
Mhm.
think about weight loss, think about IRA contributions, think about, financial plan. I mean, all those things. Oh, you know what? I'm going to make it up next year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to do, I didn't do it this year, but I'm going to do twice as much next year.
Right. And we
Yeah.
we still don't have a plan of how to be held accountable for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I was in a agent leadership council clinic yesterday, and we were sharing our goals and whys,
Yeah.
and kind of more of, we were asking, where do we want to be at the end of the year, that when we look back, we could say that was a good year. Which again, that's taking the why and being able to verbalize it, because we would have to spend the whole day. But it's interesting. We had a conversation around that success. We've been told success is being able to do it on our own, being able to accomplish something. We did it. Yet most success happens
Through others.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was when it was interesting, when we were sharing things and people were grading themselves of how well they were doing. And others were like, well, no, you're actually, like, people could see the other person so much better than you can see yourself.
Yeah.
But they felt that was a burden on each other, right? They were fine to do it for, like, I'd be happy to hold you accountable.
Right.
Not that you, but to ask somebody else saying, will you hold me accountable? For me, that feels like a burden, right? And what am I going to pay you to do that, right? And that's why we get coaches and all of that.
Sure.
But those around us are probably the most important people to share those
Yeah.
goals with,
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of, things involved there, and as I say, tied to a why becomes critically important. And the other factor, the other characteristic, is it has to include strategy. I mean, I just finished a goal thing this morning, a goal session this morning, and we think, okay, I'm going to write the goal. I'm going to make $250,000 next year. There, good, I'm done. No, you just started.
It's a great goal.
It's a great goal.
And
Now we've got to get to the point where we determine what's the execution steps. What are the, and you know, we'll talk about things like, okay, let's talk about a lead generation goal. Okay, open houses. Well, that's a noun, first of all, and second of all, a strategy is a sentence. It has a subject, it has a verb, it has, outcomes and so forth. So when you say open houses, I'm with you. I'm in your bucket, right? I'm in your bucket. Now tell me, what's the sentence? I'm going to do open houses.
What are you
Okay. How many?
Yep.
I'm going to put you down as the subject. Mary Hope is going to do how many open houses? How many open houses a week? How many open houses a day? How many open houses, and to what? So we want a subject, verb, an object, and to what end?
bingo.
Yeah.
To what end? So now we've got a strategy, and now we can look at that and say at the end of quarter one, all right, this was my lead generation point of, PowerPoint, or point of emphasis. And so how did I do? Well, now I can evaluate it better because it's a sentence. It's not just a bucket and saying, oh, well, I didn't have that many open houses. Well, then that's, now we're getting somewhere.
Well, and I think we have all three of those elements: who, what, and to what end. What can happen is if you are tracking that, then you can find out where the gap is, because I know there are so many agents working so hard and getting no results.
Yeah.
Especially in a shifting market where you don't just do the one thing. Before, you could go to an open house and it would sell without you doing anything, right? But if your end is to get buyers, that's a whole different thing. And how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And how many are you going to get? And if you need to get 2 buyers out of every open house to get to your goal, and you only get 1, now you have a way to, now we have to either double it or do a different activity. Like, you're not at the end of the year like, I made 125. What?
Yep.
What happened?
Yep.
That's a big, if you were working for another person and they said you needed to produce this 4 appointments a month, and that's 48 a year, and you did 12, you probably wouldn't have a job at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I find too is I feel like a lot of people, and I used to do this, you would only take the time to actually look back at like your successes or failures at year end, right? So, and a year is a long time. I was just when we had the snowstorm the other day, right? I was shoveling, being like, oh, right, I forgot, like this shovel's over here and this one's not as good as that one. And like, oh yeah, the sand, I got to get the sand. Oh, I totally forgot icicles form. So it's been less than a year since we've had snow and I'm already like rusty on my memory.
Yeah.
And I found, actually, I was not a big sports guy, but when I started watching football and there were 4 quarters in the game, I started just looking at life at like, okay,
Segments.
it's a 4-quarter system, because, and I think I got that, especially because the Patriots, it's like they would be terrible the first 2 quarters, and then after halftime, 3rd quarter, they're like, oh, you're still trying, and then 4th quarter, boom, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to give myself a little, leeway if 1 or 2 is not working, but 3 and 4 really works well, because I think you're so quick to doubt on yourself. And my quote for last year was, nothing grows faster than a seed of doubt. And it's usually about yourself.
Yeah.
So if you can avoid just nitpicking yourself and not taking and waiting so long to like reevaluate your success or goals or, whatever your benchmarks are, then you're going to have an easier time not just beating yourself up continuously, I feel like, which a lot of people do.
See, and I think we have to set expectations, or at least discuss expectations about when do results show up. Now, we used to say, and the timing has probably changed a little bit, and it's going to change again, but we used to say we're on a 90-day clock. If today's January 1st, no, it's not really January 1st, it's April 1st.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever I do today
Yes.
is going to show up 90 days from now. Okay, well, one could argue maybe it's 60 now, maybe it's getting back towards 90. But that's what we've got to make sure people are aware of, that 2 weeks of doing the thing that requires regularity over a longer period of time is not going to produce those results.
Mm.
And again, just to go back to future self, when we reverse engineer and we say someday in 2036, I'm going to net $1 million, I'm going to earn $1 million net, and then we start to reverse engineer. Well, when I get it down to, and we go 10, 5, 3, 1 year, well, now my next year, which is 1 year, if I hit that point, that guide point, I'm on track for $1 million.
Yes.
So I don't, it helps me to overcome the insatiable immediate response
Yeah.
to things at a high level by saying I am on track.
Right.
If we look at things only in a year's worth,
Mhm.
I make the analogy, it's like working for a school system. I mean,
So you have worked
I have.
Yeah.
And we used to get our budgets at the beginning of the year, and they'd say, don't spend anything. We got to be careful. Don't spend, don't spend. And then after the Christmas break, we're getting ready for town meetings and budget meetings, and they could come out and say, hey, if you haven't spent your money,
Yes.
don't expect to get the same or more.
Yeah.
You got to spend your money. So now all of a sudden we were like, don't spend the money. And now it's like, spend all your money.
That's what you can, yeah.
What kind of good thinking do you think went
Yeah.
behind that spending?
Yeah, right.
Not good.
Yeah,
But we're on a 12-month
Yes.
life period.
right. Yeah.
Whereas future self extends, and now we're able to put it in context, and we can say, yeah, I got from 0 to 150 in year 1, and by the end of year 3 I know I want to be around 300, so that by year 5 I'm at 5, and by 10 I'm at $1 million.
Yeah.
But I'm on track. What I'm doing is keeping me
Yeah.
on my road to Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? That isn't there a saying about that we can do much more than we expect in 5 years, but much less. There something about the timing
Yeah.
that we believe that we can do a lot more in a year than we can, but
Right.
5
Yes,
years.
no, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but,
At a
but
5 year.
really, it is if we're looking at a 5-year plan and we break it down, 1 year is very manageable. But when we're just sitting just in the year and we usually say, what do I want my future self in 1 year to look like? We want ourselves to be a whole different person. We want to be able to retire. One of the goals was, I want to be financially free to retire. Like, that's great. This year?
Right.
I mean, it could be, but like, you need to know, because if you really want to retire within a year, wow, you have a lot of work to do. But if it's 5 years, then you just have to do 1/5 of that,
Yep.
and it's going to be much more manageable. And so I think we really think in big, but also too small.
Right. And see, to me, just along your point, that is, I mean, I love Tony Robbins' book, Money. And, it came out about, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 years ago. And you only have to read chapter 3.
Oh, good. You're ready.
Yeah. And
So-
the book is literally that thick. And so people will say, I'm not.
Okay, chapter 3.
Chapter 3. And he goes through the various, I call them financialness stages. What's financial security? What's financial independence? What's financial? We use all these terms interchangeably and say, what are you hoping for? I want to be financially independent. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, I'm covering this. But see, sometimes we don't even know
We don't know what that means.
what I am today.
Let alone what we want to
What
be.
we want to be.
Yeah.
So it's important that when we talk about future self or where we want to end up, let's just be specific, and let's use Tony as a model. Not that you have to subscribe to everything that he has in each of those buckets, but now you're not starting with a blank piece of paper.
Right.
Now you can customize it. You can say, I don't agree with that. I'm going to move this one over here, but that one over there. That's fine. Now look at what you have.
Right.
You
Right.
know? So if I can reach security by year 3, independence by year 5, and because I know what elements are in
What does that
there.
even mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, then I'm much clearer on it.
I think so
The-
much. Yeah, so much of ours like we don't live in reality sometimes.
And the other thing about speed, I just want to go back to that for a moment. You know, we have to practice not speeding.
Mm.
For someone who got stopped, pulled over yesterday,
Congratulations.
many meanings to that. And so, you know, again, another book I love is Miracle Morning, and you know, just you guys talked earlier about, you know, how do we practice silence? Well, if we don't practice silence, we're not practicing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, you know, technology is constantly running and so forth, but practicing silence enables us to see the benefit of those quiet times, you know, better. And I also see it correlating to, you know, we did the class on multitasking, and we tell everybody, okay, you've got paper clips, you got pencils,
Oh.
paper clips, pencils, and a piece of paper. And I want you to put the 20 paper clips together. I want you to draw. I want you to sharpen the 5 pencils.
Who's joining us
Okay.
today?
She wants to get in on it.
And I want you to draw 5 stars. Now, Andrew, I want you to do 1 paper clip, sharpen 1 pencil, draw 1 star. Mary Hope, I want you to put all the paper clips together. I want you to put all the
Pencil.
pencils
Yeah.
and draw a star. Who finishes first?
I do.
You do, definitely. And so the point is, when we are able to insulate ourselves from the demands of speed
Mm-hmm.
so that we can concentrate and effectively deliver
Yeah.
on a component, first of all, there's less errors. I mean, how many times, you guys know, I went through this yesterday, you know, driving. This will only take a second for me
Just
Mhm.
to cover on the phone and so forth, make an error because I'm looking at I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
it's so
not
much.
effective.
Well, we technically cannot multitask.
No.
Like people, it's this
Physically
myth.
can't,
You know,
no.
it's like we can't do more than one thing at a time. The only, you know, caveat to that is like you can put your, you know, laundry in the laundry machine and have your laundry going in the background, and the machine is helping you to automate something in the background, and then you're focusing on this. Although the problem I'm seeing now is with AI on the horizon, we're taking a lot of things that we probably should be focusing on, and we're sticking it into the AI machine and thinking that's going to just deal with the things in the background
Yep,
for us.
taking notes.
And now we're losing out on actually, like, you know, being focused on the things where we should be focused, you know. And I think, you know, your business planning clinic, that was, I think, the first class I took when I got licensed here.
Wow.
I was just, and it was the full one. It was like the 12-hour
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I did it by Zoom in my
The
basement.
12-day one.
Yeah, the 12 day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was the, like, you know, pee breaks, have some
Oh.
jars next to you kind of thing.
Oh
but
my goodness.
but that I just remember being like, you know, when you first get licensed, you just get inundated with so much coming at you. And even though that was a long class, you know, the methodical nature of how to sort of reverse engineer what your goals are was probably the most succinct and the most profound, powerful thing I subjected myself to when I got licensed.
I like
Because
to use the word subjected
Yeah,
myself
right.
into
yeah,
your,
no,
your
exactly, yeah,
classes.
because
I just want you to make sure you.
He hasn't, by the way, he hasn't come back.
that's right, yeah.
But it was the most profound.
That's right, because you're sitting there and you're taking it all in, and because I remember I was posed the same question in grad school. They were like, before you leave, we had to have a 5-year plan. Like, how are you going to become a director in Hollywood after walking out of the doors here? And it was really hard. Most of us couldn't really even answer it, you know, because there's so many unknowns, there's so many variables. Where do you start? How do you do it? But to be able to have, you know, somebody who's done this for a long time, right, to kind of actually say, all right, here's goal X, right? All right, so it's 250,000. How many homes do you need to sell in order to get the 250,000? How many open houses do you need to do? How are you going to get those open houses? What are you going to do at the open houses when you're at the, right? Going past the topsoil of thinking into the fertile soil of where you get honestly creative as to how you can actually build a business, I think is something that everybody in January should really be doing, is just asking those tough questions of themselves alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And I would say too, for the January thing, or another thing
yeah.
to consider is consider that routine. When you win the morning, you win the day.
Mm.
So what is that routine that you can push yourself to do? Not, work out for 3 hours and
Right.
but in a 45-minute period, what can you do to win the morning so that you win the day, and practice being, frankly, alone with yourself,
Mm.
alone with yourself in your thoughts, or clear of your thoughts. I find that by doing that, I did this. I've been doing it now for way too long. Not way too long, but a long time. And now my planning time on Sundays at 3 is much more effective
Mm.
because I'm practicing that sort of slowdown, um, not to the point where I'm not doing anything, but I'm doing it effectively. It's well done. It's
Yes.
thorough. I don't have to do it again. I don't have time to do it the first time. I sure as hell don't have time to do
You're
it
right.
2, 3, 4 times over because I'm driving or I'm trying to have 2 conversations at the same time.
Mm.
If I Now, that also includes prioritizing and saying, because not every, technology and speed is working against us. That doesn't mean everything has the same priority. So knowing what that priority is and knowing to say, Mary Hope, I'm happy to talk with you about that. How about a week from Tuesday? Because
Because
there's other priorities because I've thought about it
Yeah.
daily.
I was just reading a survey that was, and this is at least 6 years old now already. We check our forms of communication, whether it's text or email, or call log, 63 to 66 times a day minimum. So,
it's
how,
probably even more now.
yeah, it is more now.
Six
But can
6
you
years
imagine
ago.
how often are we?
That was ancient
Oh,
times.
I know, but like think about how often we are.
Distracted.
We're looking for the next thing that's going to take our attention away from whatever we're trying to be intentional about,
Right.
and I think that is the biggest,
Yeah.
you know, killer of dreams right now, honestly,
Yeah.
in any business. It's just we're going in there and we're going, oh, that email came in. I got to get back to them right now. Whatever I'm working on over here, I'll get back to it in a second. And then you lose your train of thought, and it takes you 30 minutes to get
Absolutely.
back into the same train of thought that you were in before. So it's like you are your own worst enemy when it comes to that stuff, and it's hard. It's
Yeah, it's
you know.
it's a blessing and a curse, all of our technology, right? Because
Yeah.
now we used to be able to go show houses and we didn't know people called us or emailed us.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Right.
Yeah. Ignorance was bliss.
No, it really it did change
Oh,
us
yeah.
as people and the way that we can slow down and think.
And that ability to insulate ourselves from those things, becomes really, really important because you just can't do everything at the speed that it can be delivered.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
There was a time, at one point in my management career was, we'd say, if you just let it wait long enough, it'll solve itself. I mean,
Yeah.
to some
Yes.
and
Yeah.
some degree, people hear that as, oh, you just want to sit around and
Yeah.
Yeah.
do nothing. No, it actually is a benefit because the person got a chance to figure out how to figure it out, and yeah, you didn't have to take the time
Yep.
that you needed for something else that was more important.
Yeah.
So
Wow. We could, you have a whole, I guess, a 12-hour course now
Yeah,
that,
that's right.
that we could talk about this, and we're trying to scrunch it into an hour. What would you say? And we usually ask kind of a final question of our
is
guests.
that a hint? I'm not going to be talking much longer.
Well, you don't have 11 more hours.
Next episode.
Next time. We need a couple more episodes. But what would you say if someone has not done any business planning clinic or goal setting, minus saying, I want to lose weight, right? Like they haven't taken that time. What would be the one thing you would recommend if they're listening to this for the first time, first thing in January? What would you recommend them start with?
Well, I think it really comes down to getting in touch with purpose and figuring out what that is. And that can take on many shapes and forms and so forth. But I think, when we do the, What's Your Why workshop, which is modeled after Simon Sinek, and another great resource for the whole why thing. It really comes down to purpose. We are driven by our purpose. I mean, that's what creates our momentum.
Right.
And when we're clear about that, all kinds of things happen. When we're clear about our purpose, do you notice people that you think, wow, they can make decisions like that? And it seems like, they kind of work, and, I mean, they don't get ruffled and so forth. What is it about them? Clarity of purpose.
Clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity.
Clarity of purpose. They just are solid on what the purpose is, and therefore things can be insulated. They can insulate themselves from distractions and not feel guilty about it, or that they've got to do everything. And it's clarity of purpose. So that's where, I would spend time with somebody and saying, I mean, why are you even, I shouldn't say even, why are you here? I mean, why real estate? Or what is it about real estate that is appealing?
Well, that's interesting, because a lot of people get into real estate just because someone recommended it. Like, it's almost like a lot of people, and we've interviewed someone, fall into it.
Sure.
And yet that doesn't keep you going. You'll quit, and most do.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Well, I think that's the episode title, Clarity of Purpose.
Yeah.
He's always trying to find a title before we.
I always try and pluck it out. Yes, I'm not sitting there editing this, being like, "What are we going to call this one?" Yeah, right. At the editing table, that's what it's going to be.
And and you can start. I mean, and with awareness of that, you can start to look around your environment and say, "Who are those people?" Who are those quick decision makers? And they're not just quick; they're thorough because of clarity of purpose.
Yeah.
I love it.
Great. Well, this was a great talk. I hope this is helpful for everybody watching or listening out there, beginning their year and looking for which direction to go, and obviously if you have questions about this, you can reach out to us, right?
Absolutely.
We can always, talk more directly about anybody's specific, challenges that they're having and try to give them some guidance, because, success through others, right?
Absolutely.
It's high tide raises all ships here. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Cool.
Well,
all right, great.
So
Thanks,
much,
Ann.
Ellen, for
Thank you for
coming
having me.
back.
Of course. Yeah. And thanks, Lucas.
And I'll
for
see you
being so good.
at my next class.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yes.
class.
That's right. Yep. Round 2. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Behind the Sign, Real Stories from Real Estate.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and gained a little insight into the world behind those for sale signs.
Today's episode was brought to you by Keller Williams Realty Metropolitan, proudly serving New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. A special thank you to our agents, leadership, and partners at KW Metro for their continued support.
And thanks to you, our amazing listeners and viewers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Leave us a review or comment. We love hearing your feedback, and it helps more people discover the show.
And if you have a real estate story you'd like to share or a question you want answered on a future episode, reach out to us at metro.kw.com or find us on Instagram, handle @KWMetroNH.
Until next time, we'll see you
Behind the Sign.